Welcome, everybody, to the World of Ability Podcast Network. My name is Emily Gomer, and a podcast engineer here. We're excited to bring you another episode of the World of Pets with Debbie Hayes, which is every Tuesday at 6 p.m. Pacific, 8 o'clock p.m. Central, talking all about our furry friends. And for being an animal house, that should be a fun show. So I'm going to bring in Debbie to get us a little kicked off here.
Thank you. Yeah, today it will be like Animal House because we're talking about keeping our pets safe, and sometimes that doesn't work out as well as we had anticipated. I think my co host David will concur with that. So, we want our pets to feel secure with us. We want our pets to feel safe around us, and we want them to live for a long time. But we want that long time to be a quality life. So, with that in mind, David and I have found a medicinal mushroom that we feel adds to the quality of pets. There's also some products for humans, but it boosts your immune support and the pet's immune support so that they can live a longer, healthier life. And that's what we want. But mostly this podcast is just to talk about all things about pets. And that could be laughing, it could be crying, but just have a good time, a little bit of information. And tonight we're actually going to talk about keeping our pets safe. And mistakes that David and I have made in the past. And I'm going to turn it over to David to start us off. Thank you, David.
Yeah, you're welcome. It's my pleasure. Good evening, everybody. I have been strictly a dachshund or dash hound, however you want to pronounce it, owner for over. Let's see, Peyton. He was my first puppy from the litter of one, and his dad passed away. So he was 16 right now, and his dad passed away 5 years ago. So I would say I've been a dachshund owner for 23 years because I had another dachshund before that. So my experience, because dachshunds are just cuddle bugs, is that they're the best cuddle bugs. But they're also the best guard dogs, and they don't back down to big dogs and/or uh, rodents, squirrels, deer, and a few other things. So you got to keep them kind of contained because they do have the little dog syndrome, but it's a real blessing because they're the best guard dogs. That's my personal opinion. Any segue, Dave? Because I got more. I got lots more.
What?
Any segue? Did you want to add to anything that I just said? Or are you
No,
breaking up?
you go ahead
All right, I'll
and
roll.
tell us about your incident, one incident, and then I'll go.
Oh my gosh,
We can
there's
go back
there's
and
been a
forth.
few. There's been a few. Peyton, born blind, litter of one. He's almost completely deaf now, but he's 16 years old. The biggest thing that I can say is keep your dog away from moving objects. That means keep them on a leash and make sure that they're in a contained area. It's not because you're being mean to them. You know, once they lose sensory perception, like hearing,
Why do you
vision,
say that, David?
because he got run over by a forklift and it dislocated his hip the last time. Now,
Ah,
don't get me wrong, he was paralyzed 4 times prior to that. That was a spinal injury that he just got going up and down stairs, but dachshunds are very prone to that. So it's very important to know your dog's, breed, and make sure that you're taking care of them accordingly, because there is really uh, most breeds, if you look them up, you can see what they were bred for. And dachshunds were bred for digging holes, uh, to chase snakes, badgers, ground bound animals like rabbits, squirrels, and that kind of stuff. But you get into larger breeds and they have a whole different thing. You have huskies. They're bred to, pull sleds and stuff like that. You've got Australian shepherds that are meant to herd cattle and sheep and that kind of stuff. So I mean, you got to be aware of the breed that you're, I guess buying into. Most people have to pay for their dogs, so I guess you're buying into a breed. But know how they're going to be able to interact with your family and with your surroundings. Honestly,
I agree. And I remember the incident with the forklift very well because that was only a couple of months ago. So my first incident was unusual in that it was just this week, and it was two dogs that I was pet sitting for. And the parents, human parents of those dogs, knew that the larger dog, who's a retriever, would pick up the little dog occasionally and just shake it. Not a very pleasant experience for the small terrier. Yeah, but you would think that you would think that retriever was a mean dog, right? I mean, one night job. It was not a 24-hour job. It was just go over 3 times a day to let the dogs out. Mm-hmm. Debbie let the dogs out, right? So, so one night I was sitting there and the retriever came up, had her paws on my thigh, and was just licking me all over the face. Can you hear me?
I can. And what was the terrier doing?
Okay. So she was just licking me all over the place. So I had a situation. I had a criteria that I was using, I guess you'd say, to let one of them out and let the other one in, because they couldn't be together because the big dog might grab the little one and shake it up. And so that in mind, the small dog was in a crate and the big dog was roaming the house. So I'd let the big dog out. And then because I use a walker sometimes, I took my walker over, and then I could place my walker a little bit between the two of them so that one of them would go out and I'd have the little one stand sort of behind me, and then she would come in. So they switched. I called that the transfer. That's the way I referred to it to the owners. And the transfer went really smoothly until the very last visit. The very last visit, I went outside with the small dog, which I had been going out with the big dog, and it didn't occur to me, the difference. I go out with the small dog. I tell the small dog to wait. I mean, the big dog I could block because when I was standing in the doorway, she couldn't get by me. I told the little dog to wait, and she went right between my legs and went inside. And not only that, she didn't stop behind the walker. She walks around the walker into the living room and starts staring the other dog down.
Oh boy.
So, yeah. So they were together, not by choice of the little dog. And so I just, I also take my cane with me. So I just put the cane between them and I just, not hit anybody, but just like, back the one that was aggressive back with the cane. And she did walk away right away. So I put the other dog in the crate and, but obviously, well, I wasn't happy. The owners weren't happy, but and I don't know. It's you just don't know what dogs are going to do. Obviously, I was over there for 4 days, and for 4 days they were predictable and civilized to each other. They were even when the little one was in the crate, the big one would go up and they were both wagging their tails. And I thought, oh, maybe the owners are wrong. Maybe they're, maybe they're going to get along okay. Because as we know, as dog owners, if they are wagging their tails, then they're. So that was my experience for this week. I guess the lesson from that is to be more careful of the small dog and make sure that the big dog is more manageable because it can't go anywhere. It has to have enough room where the small dog is low to the ground, and in this case anyway, was low to the ground and a small dog. And so it could sneak in and where it wasn't supposed to be going right then.
No, absolutely, and I
So,
see that too.
and
The one thing I can say is when large dogs and small dogs get together, the wagging of the tails doesn't necessarily mean they're happy. We see that when they greet us as they're happy, but when they're communicating with one another, that can mean something completely different, like my food, my water, or my human. So they're very
yeah,
the communication is mixed up when it comes to wagging tails. Don't fall into the trap of, oh, the dog's wagging its tail. You still might get a little nibble. Just saying.
I mean, I never thought about letting them out to say, oh, they like each other. Now I'm going to open the crate and let the two of them out together. It wasn't that. It was just that, well, maybe they've come to like each other and the owners haven't noticed yet. But yeah, I
Well, that's
guess
what I'm
that
saying.
was not the
The
case.
tail wag isn't 100% happy dog. The tail wag is another form of communication, and
Right.
I've seen it personally when
Yeah.
Peyton, he's been attacked by three big dogs. Uh, his mom was attacked by a big dog, and they were all wagging their tails at the same time. So we didn't know what was going on. They're wagging their tails, they were growling. So, know your dog, know the distance. Definitely keep them on a leash when they're around different breeds. That's what I can give about dog safety, and especially, you know, uh, I would add to that. Um, yeah, leashes are important, very important. And I know most states require them, cities require them, and all that in public places. But if you're just going to walk your dog and you think that you can walk down the sidewalk without a leash, you're putting your dog at risk because they could run out in front of a car and they could run out in front of
Okay, David, you cut
another
out.
dog.
You cut out, and we didn't hear that.
Oh, dang it.
We didn't catch that because it was buffering.
Well, which part? The whole thing?
The very last part.
Yeah, the very
No,
last
not
part
the
is
whole thing. The very last part.
basically keep your
About,
dogs,
about after a leash is important.
right. So keep them on a leash when you're in public. If you have a dog that's in a bag, that's fine. Usually a safe place to be for a dog. I take my dog into church and the grocery store in a bag. Uh, so, a lot of times they're not allowing dogs to be just on a blanket in the grocery cart. Fine, I get that. But you can keep your small dog on a leash in a bag and those kind of things, and you can save them a lot of stress. And that when you get, especially when you get an older dog, stress is really their biggest thing. They're not mad at you being their caregiver, giving them food, giving them water. They're mad that they can't be a puppy anymore. So still play with your old dogs. That's an important thing, by the way. But with Peyton specifically, it's leash. He can't see. He can't. You know. He can't hear. He doesn't respond to verbal commands anymore. So it's a leash. You walk him out or you carry him out. But you keep him around. You keep him close to you when there's bigger dogs around. Why? Because it's a risk to him and or you. Small dogs can provoke a fight from a big dog real quick, and I've witnessed
Mhm.
that 3 out of 3 times. So, and the one time I got bit in the face by the other dog because I kept Peyton out of the way. That's nobody wants to go through that, and we don't want anybody else's pet to go through that. So make sure that you're aware of the surroundings of the dog. Make sure that the other dog is contained reasonably before you introduce, and also make sure that the owner actually cares about what's going on around their dog. That's also important. Owners are important
Yeah, that
too.
is a good one. Yeah. What
So,
happened? And I don't know the answer to this question, but not much after the forklift incident, didn't
mm,
didn't Peyton get bit when you were on a walk? Or what? Oh,
yeah,
that was
yep, that was a big dog, and actually, was with a dog that he's very familiar with and is helped by. So, but they get along fine. They always did. They always will. But it happened to be that one moment that Peyton snapped at the big dog, and the big dog bit Peyton. So it's not a life-ending situation; it's a territory thing, and that's really important with dogs, is territory. So I would recommend not,
right.
just keep the distance first of all. But to pet owners out there, if you have multiple pets, anytime, or anybody that owns a pet, keep some antibiotics that are appropriate for treating dogs and treating yourself and treating your kids on hand, so that if something happens, they don't have to go to the hospital, because most of the time it's just going to be a band-aid situation, but the bacteria can get into your blood and make you very sick. I got very sick after that bite, after protecting pain, not the most recent one, but
Mhm.
next to the last time he got attacked, I got bit in the face. It was a through and through my cheek. And I don't discuss breeds because I don't think that breeds are the problem. I think it's the people that are the problem.
Mm. Yeah.
But personal opinion. But
Yeah.
um, if I hadn't gotten antibiotics in a couple of days, I could have gotten really sick. And so, I just recommend it. I mean, there's all kinds of places now that you can get antibiotics online. You can buy natural herbs and mushrooms and all that kind of stuff to keep your immune system boosted. I mean, that's Deb, that's kind of why we met initially, was because of health and wellness, and now we're doing pets health and wellness, and so hit up Deb. That's all I got to say is hit up Deb, because she can hook you up, and like, seriously. And there's some websites, and I would share some, but I'm not sure that I'm allowed to, because they're all like proprietary advertising and all that stuff. So um, I don't want to overstep a boundary somewhere and be like, you're not allowed to talk about us. Okay, so that's the world we live in, though. But I'm honestly, I just say
Okay.
look into pet health, preventative, longevity, and all that stuff, because it really works. You can cut a you know when Peyton got bit, I mean, we had antibiotics on hand from the other dog's last surgery, guess what? He was fine in a day, 2 days, with a small dose. We didn't have to, of course, because of the dog size, we had to reduce the dose. But I mean, it's just common sense stuff. Don't throw that stuff away. It's all important.
There are a couple of pointers. One of them that I learned because when I was taking my dog over to some place where they were going to dog sit for him, and so they wanted to introduce obviously their own dog to him. And if you're introducing two dogs, then as David mentioned, they are very territorial. So you want to take both dogs, leaving the house separately for walks, so that when they actually meet, they're not in one of the dog's territories.
Mm-hmm.
So that helps. They can establish their friendship or acquaintance. If they're not going to really be friends and play together, they're just going to tolerate each other. But they can establish that while they're not in the territory of either dog. And that usually will make for a smooth transition than when they return home, because the two dogs know each other.
Absolutely. And it's very important to raise your dogs in public, not just secluded at home in a cage and not meet any other dogs, especially dogs. I mean, cats, different breed, different style. But I always took my dogs as puppies to the dog park after they got their shots, 10 days or whatever it is. They're like, okay, they're free to go. I'd take them to the, local dog park and we'd be like, all right, it's time to grow up and, time to learn to socialize. And they'd learn, they'd get nipped at, they get, a little, that kind of stuff. They'd bark and all that stuff. But that is how even humans grow up. Like, if you think about it. So, I mean, really, I was nipped at and barked at a lot when I was growing up, and I barked back a lot when I was growing up too. So, it's just, I mean, it's nature's behavior is socialization, to get the best results, down the road. You know, I could go on and on about that, 100%, like for hours. So, but I'm not going to keep you on that one.
Well, I used to take my dog to the dog park a lot too. Now I have a roommate who's nice enough to walk him, so I get to sleep in instead of going to the dog park in the heat of in the hot summers very early. But a couple of things that I observed about the dog park. One was it seemed like most of the issues, or at least a lot of them, happened when there were toys. I really don't recommend toys at the dog park because you don't have as good a control. If somebody else's toy wants your dog's toy, and either you and your dog are going to be frustrated because the other dog won't give it back. And sometimes the owners don't even make them give it back, or the owners don't take it away and give it back to you, which doesn't seem fair to me, but it does happen that way at times. But I think that there are more altercations at the dog park when they are when there's toys involved. Now, I don't know. I mean, the frisbees, it makes perfect sense to take the dogs to the dog park and throw frisbees. But again, there are times when the wrong dog ends up with the frisbee. I don't know why. I don't recall arguments over the frisbees. Arguments were more over other toys, it seemed like. But
balls, you got
one
people
tip,
with the sling balls and all that stuff. Yeah.
yeah. So one thing I learned, it's funny. I mean, this was like a long time ago when I first started taking him to the dog park, and he's almost 13. So it would probably have been like 12 years ago. There was a fella there, thank heavens he was there, because two dogs got into it, and he went and stood behind the aggressor and grabbed both back legs. So now that dog is going to release the other dog because all he's got for balance is his front legs, and he's focusing on his front legs and doesn't have time to be focusing with the other dog in, a piece of the other dog in his mouth. The worst, I think the worst fight or close to it that I ever saw at the dog park frustrated me because I knew that strategy. And I can't even remember what kind of dog it was that was the aggressor. I know that I knew the dog very well. That was the victim. And the funny thing was, the dog that was the victim was always coming up to my dog, and she'd just like raise her voice a little bit or something. She was a husky, and my guy would like shiver and run away. He was very intimidated, but I still didn't want to see her get beat up. And that dog did, like, had her ear in his mouth, and I kept screaming to the looking at the owners, but they weren't paying attention to me, and if they were, they didn't know what I was trying to get them to do. And I was like, grab your dog's legs, grab your dog's back legs, and I just kept screaming, and they weren't doing it. And the poor husky was definitely taking the brunt, just laying on the ground. And so I just went up and I attempted to grab two legs, and I missed with one hand, and I only got one leg, but that works too, I found out. And even though you would think that the dog might be able to turn around and bite me, it didn't. I still think it's because it's off balance, and the other leg might not have been on the ground by that time, because I was holding the one leg up. So that worked as well. The owner was after that would always talk about, yeah, Debbie came in and saved Crystal. but it does work. And that's one thing. When this incident last week happened, I had thought, okay, about grabbing the dog's legs, but then the aggressor, I was here, the aggressor was over here, and the other dog in the middle. And that's why it just seemed more practical to use my cane. Like I said, I wasn't beating anybody up with the cane, but just like planting it and sort of pushing the other dog back with the cane against him. But anyway, that does work. What?
Creating the barrier.
Yeah. And then another thing, this wouldn't be for the dog park, this would be more for home, but you might want to keep, like, if you have an old phone book, one of the thick ones, or some kind of a thick book that you could like drop it and it would make a loud noise and it would distract the dog that was the aggressor, until you could get one of the two dogs out of the way. So I'm certified in pet sitting, and I remember, and this I think is the only time I had heard this, but when I had the pet sitting class, which is online, and it goes away after you take it, so you can't share it with all your friends, I guess. And that teacher was not in favor of using the water bottle. And we had a discussion about that, David. So you want to give your thoughts about the water bottle and spraying the animals if they're misbehaving?
I used it personally. I used it on my cats. I used it on my dachshunds. But I'm not sure if it works on bigger species or bigger breeds, I guess you'd say. Definitely doesn't work on dinosaurs. Yeah, those guys are just getting out of hand these days. Sorry, I had to throw a little joke in there.
The stream might not reach their mouth up there.
So it doesn't work on ducks either. Ducks with headphones. It doesn't work on ducks with headphones. But no, I mean I've had good experience with water
We'll keep
bottles.
that in mind.
It's not usually a permanent fix, but it's a quick reminder. If they start sniffing around the trash can, zap. And if they start sniffing around the coffee table, zap. Oh yeah, okay. If they're not like with Pooh, actually it worked really well. But all he wanted was the ball. But he's literally the only dog that's never stolen a cheeseburger off the table ever. So I think the squirt
Wow.
bottle worked. But yeah, I mean it's a quick reminder, and if you're like 10 feet away, poop, and you can't get over there and give them a little tap on the butt and get their attention away from what they're doing. Just a quick reminder. Hey, don't do that. I like the water bottle personally. It definitely works on cats. Every cat that I've ever had, every cat that I've ever known, actually. And but bigger dogs, they kind of look at you and like, do some more, do it some more. And they will open their mouth and they will take the water, like Scooby Doo, Scooby
Yeah.
Tree. So, yeah, it just depends on the breed, really. Honestly, I'm not. There's no cut and dry training method solution. It's just like raising a kid. I watch my friends' kids and 8 and 4 years old, and they're complete polar opposites from my 27-year-old daughter. Uh, but it was, I learned through the process of how small people react to big people. What's going to work in this situation? It's trial and error. Honestly, it's all trial and error.
Yeah.
If you're going to raise a dog, it's like raising a child. If you're going to raise a cat, it's like raising a child. You're going to have to find out how to discipline it, how to train it, how to feed it, what it likes, what it doesn't like, when's it going to cry, when's it going to pee in your bed, the whole 9 yards. So, I mean, that's it's life, man. You're existing with life. If you want more life in your life, get some pets or have a baby. Just saying.
All right.
Just
Yeah.
saying. I mean that's what it breaks down to. Like I'm a big cuddly teddy bear, and I love animals. I love babies and 8-year-olds and 4-year-olds and 27-year-old. I just love people. And that's really why I'm so grateful to do this with you, Deb, is because we get to talk about these life experiences. Somebody
Uh-huh.
may be like, oh, I don't know. I'm not perfect. That's for a fact. I'm just going to share my experience with you.
Yes, I agree with that. And as far as the water bottle, and like I said, I wish I could remember what his theory was on it, but it was I was taking the course for paid for by the pet sitting company,
Mhm.
and so since I just assumed that they were endorsing what the teacher of the course was endorsing, and maybe that's why I didn't really pay a lot of attention to why, because I figured if he was representing the company and there by proxy I was going to be representing the company, then if that was off limits, then it was off limits, and it didn't really matter why.
Right.
Um, so that was one thing. So okay, so let's talk just for a minute before we close out about convenience when you have a new dog in the house, especially a puppy. Do you usually crate your dogs or not?
So I start them in the kennel early on, but I do it in short sessions. So I will put them in for half an hour or an hour, go do what I need to do, and then I'll let them outside for an hour. It's a fast rotation, and then the longer it goes on, by the time that Duke and Peyton and Bella were fully developed, And well, actually, before Peyton was even born, Duke and Bella were fully kennel trained because I was self employed. I had to be gone sometimes 10, 12 hours a day. So I'd make the conditions right, make them comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
I would leave them water, not food, because they fight over food. I mean that's a dog thing.
Mm-hmm.
Just don't leave the food out when you're not there. I guess that would be
That's
another
true.
safety tip.
That's true. We understood that
Put the
before.
food up out of reach in the closet, whatever you got to do. But give them water. Got to leave them water. And but by the time Paint was born and a year old, I could have all three of them in the same kennel for 10 to 12 hours at a time.
Oh,
And
wow.
boy, but I would put it right by the
Wow.
door or 5 feet from the door. So the minute I got home and they started whining, they're right outside. And that's important. But the whole point of rotating them in when they're puppies is to get them to go into the kennel, first of all, especially if they misbehave. It's a form of discipline, but it's also a form of
Yeah.
safety. And so I would have them in a 1 hour rotation, 2 hour rotation, 3 hour rotation, and then I would leave them home for 5 or 6 hours. And then I'd come home, let them out. And then I'd put them back in. But the whole time that I'm there, they're out with me. And so they got that relationship built up with me and they're like, okay, dad's
Yeah.
gone. We need to just chill out and we need to get along. I'm gonna sniff your butt. You're gonna sniff my butt. He's gonna sniff your butt. I'm gonna sniff his butt. Butt sniffing is going on right now the whole day. Now we're gonna take a nap. And that's literally
I
what
love
was
it.
going on. So, but I mean, it's in, you got to start in a short cycle and you make sure that they can coexist while you're there, then make sure they can coexist while you're gone. And you got to extend that cycle. So I don't recommend anybody that works 60 hours a week to buy a puppy because you're not going to get there.
Right.
Uh, you're just not.
Yeah, exactly.
You're just not. You have to build a relationship with your dog from start to finish. And I love
Yeah.
rescues. I love rescues. But if you don't have the time to build that relationship, it's probably not going to work out for you.
Yeah. Yeah. Very true. I, w- I, w- one thing that you said, if you're trying to train them to be kennel trained, I think it's good if you can find some other way to discipline them rather than put
Correct.
them in the crate. Maybe you
Yeah, and
can't,
that
but
you
if you
can
can,
after a while.
then that's more
After a while, I was
preferable
able to. Yeah. After a
because you
while, I
don't
was able
want
to,
them
and
to.
I would use the squirt bottle. Like I get home, there's poop on the floor. All right, who did it? You know, because they'll tell you. They look away. They're like, all right, that's your poop. So I pick it up and then I squirt. Bring them over to it, squirt them. That's an entirely civil, humane way to train your dog. So I mean, that's like the second step after you kennel train them is to allow them out, block off the doors that you don't want to have to, clean the carpet later. Okay,
Yeah,
leave them on the wood floor or the LVP or whatever. Leave them in the places you can clean up easily,
right.
and then you start the training
Yeah.
for that second phase. It's just it's
Well,
not that hard. It's just like raising a baby. Just saying.
yeah.
I mean, I started leaving my daughter at home at
And
like
the other
age
thing
3.
is
So
that I think that, yeah, I
I'm just kidding. I
think
did
that
not do that.
if they're kennel trained, that there's less likely that they'll have accidents in the house. I mean, they don't
Correct.
like going in the kennel, that's for sure. We know
That is
that.
also correct. Yep.
When you would concur with that, when you
Yeah,
so, but
100%.
that's been my
Yeah.
experience um, that when you kennel train them first, and like David said, you're with them, you're taking them outside. If they're not in the kennel, that's literally peeing in their bed.
Yeah, they don't like it.
And they don't care.
And that's
for
also
that.
a way to keep them
So,
from, once
oh my
they get
gosh.
to long-term
Please don't tell me he's
experience.
going to buffer through the rest of the of the show.
Oh, are we buffering again?
Are you with us? Yeah, you were.
I am with you.
You were.
But I was gonna
Okay, good.
mention the peeing in the
just said
bed
that
thing.
Yeah.
The peeing in the bed thing, actually, you can graduate to, hey, now that my dogs are trained, I would like them to sleep with me, which is fine and dandy and great. But you may have to go through a process of training them not to pee in your bed now. So I went through that with Peyton Pooh's mom. I did. I went through that with Peyton's mom, 100%. And, but I was able to finally break her of that. And that was because I caught her a couple times. She was not the communicator. Duke and Peyton would be like, Dad, 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 I gotta go out. I gotta go out. I gotta go out. And they would like literally scratch me to get out and go outside. But she wouldn't. She'd be like, I'd wake up and she'd just be staring at me with her big old puppy dog eyes while she's peeing. And I would have to like clean the whole bed right then and there. But I
Oh
would have to
boy.
take her outside first. So, but I finally broke her of that. And that was I mean, that was a pretty big, it took, I think it took me about 3 months to break her of doing that and a lot of laundry. But dogs do communicate. You also have to learn how they communicate. So, and they need to learn how you communicate. So keep the same body language, same commands, be consistent, treats at the same time, food at the same time, all that stuff. You'll have the best behaved dogs ever. Be consistent.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. Well, hopefully people watching this will have picked up a few things, or maybe they'll just be saying, yeah, that's the way I do it. And it works for me too. And would love to get comments in the chat, even if you're
Yeah,
watching
leader
it
chat.
after. Um, you tell us how you think, if you agree with us, if you disagree, if you have any other suggestions, we can always put them on at a different time. But we enjoyed this, and again, for products that will help your dog's longevity, and help their health. And that goes for if their health is good and you want to keep it good, or if they have an issue. As well as people, please check out debspets.com. And that will take you to the company website and you can see what they have, or you can get ask me a question on LinkedIn, and it's Debbie-Hayes-AZ, because I'm from Arizona. So, David, you want the last word before Emily closes us out?
Yeah, absolutely. I'd like to say the last word. I just did. No, keep your pets safe.
Okay. I knew
The
you would
longer
say you
they
wanted to say it. Yes.
keep your pets safe. Keep them keep them out of harm's way. Just be aware, just like they're your kids. Uh, you know, make sure that your front doors are latched when you're sitting on the front porch, so they don't run out and get tangled in with another dog. Make sure they're on a leash when you walk them. Make sure,
Yeah.
that they're not pooping in somebody's yard and you're not picking it up, because then that person might get mad and they might hurt you. It's just one of those things. Be polite, be kind, and be a good person, be a good pet owner, and be a good parent. That's all I got to say.
All right. Very good. Emily, you're going to close this out here?
I usually fell asleep.
And again, everybody, we're here every Tuesday at 6 o'clock p.m. Central, or I don't know, 6 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Central.
Oh, geez, now she's buffering.
So if you want to be a guest on the show, just let us know. And thanks to our partners, Marcus R. Transform U, Zach Lane of the Pack Channel, Lawrence Wingate of Wingate Studios, Jay Roy in the Disability Channel, for their support and so on. So, till next week, have a safe and productive week and stay happy.
Emily, thank you so much. Appreciate you so much.